Have you ever tried to build a daily wellness routine that works for you and that is compatible with your life in the long run? So let's look at some of the elements and let's see how you could begin to build a daily routine. What are the elements? Morning routine, then your daily schedule, food, movement, and then your evening routine, right? So let's first talk about the morning routine. What is the place to start? So the place to start is wake up time, right? That's like how you can train your circadian rhythm. So I'm like, I don't know where to begin. Begin with what time would you like to wake up? And make it reasonably reasonable. So, somewhere between maybe 5 and 8 a.m. would be ideal. Maybe 6 or 7 would be awesome. But if you're not a morning person and it needs to be 9:30, okay, right? Just like adjust your schedule so that it fits. Then the next thing, once you get up, is brush your teeth, right? So the first thing, ideally you floss during the day after every meal, but in the morning just brush, and ideally use an electric toothbrush and a non-toxic toothpaste. Gum health is like really important for managing inflammation. So first thing, then go into your kitchen, fill a glass with water and drink a glass of water, ideally with lemon. And that alkalinizes your body. It just gets things going, boosts your immune system. It can be good for your skin health. Ideally, you avoid caffeine, but many of us are very much committed and addicted to our caffeine. So if you do drink coffee, like try to have 1 cup, try to make sure that it's organic coffee, freshly ground, and you at least get antioxidants from it. Or a bulletproof coffee. So fresh organic coffee, freshly ground, with MCT oil and ghee. The next thing is expose yourself to daylight. So that might be just like opening all the shades and windows. It could be going outside for a walk, walking your dog. It could be walking your kids to the bus. Anything to like get some daylight into your eyes, right? The next step is adding a bit of mindfulness or meditation, right? That could be 3 minutes or it could be 10 minutes, but just like a moment to pause and give yourself a little bit of time. It could be in a yoga pose, or it could be just sitting, or it could be in any place. It could be, even on the edge of the chair or the bed, just to have a bit of like centering for the day. Right? And maybe then you also add a bit of an intention for the day, right? Or read something that's inspirational. Maybe you have a quote somewhere, or a little book to get like a good attitude, a good vibe going for the day. The next thing is ideally you would exercise in the morning. So some people love morning exercise, some people prefer to exercise later in the day. Try it. Right? There are a lot of reasons to put exercise early in the day. It benefits your brain throughout the day. So that would be a really great time. And this is, make the exercise like low key, gentle, so you're not like avoiding it or like avoiding getting out of bed because you're dreading some killer workout, but like something that's pleasing to you, something that's relatively like easy and doable. And then after that, it's like going to have breakfast and also taking morning supplements, right? So if you're taking supplements that need to be taken on empty stomach before food, before anything else, put that somewhere earlier on, right? Maybe it's with a glass of water, right? If you take supplements that can be with breakfast, great, then you can take them with breakfast. So after the morning routine, where to put your attention next? So as you're building your wellness routine, the next thing that could use attention is your food, right? And overall trying to eat the cleanest, most whole food, mostly home cooked, least contaminated food that you can access and prepare. And food is so important. It's our first medicine, and it can also be a stress on the body. So definitely like think about how you're eating throughout the day. And so what to eat. So first of all, veggies, we all know that. And that's a rainbow of vegetables, ideally organic. You can use environmental working group guidelines for which foods really should be organic and which ones are okay to get conventional. That's like a way to save some money, make it more efficient. Have lots of healthy fats, right? So a lot of us are afraid of fat or avoid fat or try to choose low-fat products. So you can relax about fat and make sure you have a lot of healthy fats, right? Ghee and butter and avocados and nuts, olive oil, things like that. Make sure you have some protein in your meals, right? So ideally all 3 meals or 5 meals, however you eat, are balanced and you have some fat, some carb, and some protein, right? And protein throughout the day is important. We don't have to mega dose, but small quantity of high quality protein can be a good thing at each meal. And then carbs, right? Stick with complex carbs. That's like root vegetables. Depending on, how much you work out, exercise, how old you are. Like some of us need more carbs, some of us need fewer carbs. So figure out what's the right dose for you with carbs and what carbs agree with you, right? Whether grains are something that you want to include in your diet or not, right? So there's a personal process. I have a bunch of other videos about food, so we can talk about it in different places, the details. When thinking about what to eat, it's also important to think what to avoid, right? What are we trying to avoid in how we eat? And we definitely want to avoid chemicals, additives, pesticides, microplastics, artificial chemicals that we're not totally sure are safe or what they do in our bodies. Also, very processed food, in part because it has a bunch of those chemicals. Another thing is sugar or high fructose corn syrup or artificial sweeteners. So all those can contribute to inflammation. So in general, it's just better to stay clear. Then either trans fats or like oxidized fats that don't smell right, or like highly refined oils, vegetable oils. Grains are a question mark, in general, like choosing low glycemic index foods and low glycemic index grains is better. And it's also good to avoid the things that are on the dirty dozen list from the environmental working dirty dozen list, because those are most highly contaminated. Some things on that list from year to year are things like apples and strawberries and spinach and kale, things we think are so healthy, but they're also the most contaminated. And if you have a special reason, right, like if you have any inflammatory condition or autoimmune condition, you should probably make your diet even cleaner and consider not having gluten, not having dairy. And certain people have sensitivities to like very particular things, maybe it's legumes, maybe it's nightshades, maybe it's alcohol. It could be other things, right? Less common things. So it takes some investigation to figure out like which foods like really don't agree with you. And the other important thing is the great thing you can do for your health is to cook, right? So the more you learn to shop and make your own food, the better, right? You'll have a cleaner, higher quality diet overall, rather than like buying things that are prepared, that are covered in plastic, are in containers, are more processed. So definitely that's important. And make sure you stay hydrated, right? So that's, in addition to eating throughout the day, have either like one of those large containers and just drink with it, or just keep drinking, right? Like if you have a glass and you're close to your kitchen or water, just keep having water. And to not get too let's not get too technical, right? It's still important to like enjoy food and relax and be flexible and not get like too tense and tight about food. So these rules are guidelines and apply them like most of the time, but also like it's okay to break rules and have fun and have cheat days, right? And most of us can get away with it. You can feel kind of how much of a strictness versus relaxed attitude towards food you need to have based on like how your body responds. Initially, it's a good idea to be like more rigid, but eventually you want to like be flexible and flow with how you eat and listen to what your body tells you, right? Like use intuitive eating principles, mindful eating principles of just like listening to what you authentically feel like eating when you're actually full, when you're actually hungry, how to really sense and enjoy and be present with your food. So all of that matters too. What's next? So the next piece is movement. So incorporating movement, not necessarily exercise, just moving throughout the day is super important as you're building your day and your daily routine. So incorporating gentle exercise like stretching or walking and taking just little breaks throughout the day to stand up away from the computer and walk around and stretch, right? Open up your arms, right? Stretch your arms. And, maybe you have a big workout somewhere in the day. Maybe it's a 3-hour workout. Maybe it's a 20-minute workout. But in addition to that, it's just finding a way to live your life so that you're moving. And as you're building a whole week, schedule, then you can build in like which days have workouts, what kinds of workouts you want to have, some combo of strength and stretching and cardio, weight training, right? All these different things. But in a small, on a small scale, it's just like how to incorporate a little bit more movement, right? Like if you're on a Zoom, call, just watching something, you can get into a yoga pose, right? Like if you are at home, you can sit on a giant bouncy ball instead of a chair, right? If you, are commuting, right? You can do part of the commute walking, right? So just finding these little things that fit in your day to add a bit more movement. And it's very important to have consistency. So it's better to have 8 minutes a day than 1 hour once a week. And it's also easier to get into a routine if you are consistent. So like ideally at the beginning, you may try to be like, I'm going to exercise every day, right? It could be 5 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be, always at 8 a.m. or always at 8 p.m. But that might be easier, to build a habit and just make that feel normal if it's like a routine thing that you do every day. Next area is sleep. So we started with the wake up time. Let's talk about bedtime and just building in enough sleep. So sleep is very important for well-being. And the first step might be just to like embrace that, right? To like do whatever you need to do, read books, listen to podcasts, to convince yourself that sleep is important and that sleep is worth prioritizing, right? So like you really need to like believe that first. And once you're like, okay, I'm in, I want to get enough sleep, it will be easier to do that, right? So with behavioral change, like if you get to a point of like, I believe that this is something that I want to do for myself, then you get reinforcement from like people around you, books, experts, family. And then the third thing is you need to believe that you can do it, right? So get yourself to the place where you really believe that sleep is important. You get the validation support that you need and build up your own belief that yes, you can sort your sleep out and yes, you can get enough sleep. The details of that, right? Like how much sleep, right? That's a very personal question, right? For most of us, it's somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night. And if you went on vacation for 2 weeks and you didn't have an alarm clock and you were just chilling, right, with nothing, nowhere to go, nothing to do, think about like how many hours would you sleep, right? So that's probably like what your body actually needs. And ideally, that's how much you would sleep every single day of the week, right? Not like, quarter of that Monday to Friday and then, 3/4 of that on the weekend, right? So we try to get into a routine and try to have a pretty set sense of like what is your bedtime and wake up time. And that can change over time depending on what's going on in your life, what time school starts or your work starts, but to have a routine, right? And before bed, it's good to do a bit of a wind down, right? So some people need a lot, some people need a little bit. For sure, screens are not a great thing, not a great way to wind down. That can get in the way of falling asleep. But if you're sleeping great and doesn't bother you, great. But for most of us, it's getting off screens and it's doing something soothing and calming before going to bed, right? And also setting up the bedroom for success, right? Make sure it's dark, make sure it's the right temperature, make sure your bed is comfortable, right? There's actually some research showing that using like an eye mask can help because you really get all the light out. And even before going to sleep, you can set like dim all the lights or change the light bulbs to the ones that like don't mess with melatonin levels in our brain. And like go to bed with like a positive attitude of like, this is great and this is useful and beneficial, rather than like feeling like you're missing out. The last piece of this routine intro is that this whole thing is about taking care of yourself, and recovery from most mental health issues and addictions and just general process of human growth and development is about self-care, and through that self-care, growing. So in order to move forward in your process of getting better, recovering from an issue, or just building towards like wellness, you need to have good self-care. And not having good self-care will put all the other efforts at risk, and will put you at risk to relapse to all those, pre-good routine health habits, poor habits. And what are the pieces of self-care? So for sure, one piece is to increase mindfulness and presence in your life in some way. And that can be using apps, that can be like you doing your own thing on a yoga mat, or looking at a candle, or walking slowly. Like you can find your own way. But in some way, increasing mindfulness will be essential for this overall health program. It's also really important to not be isolated. So creating a supportive social network and having a circle, right? A circle of supports, whether it's friends or clinicians, people you can talk to, right? To support you in this journey. Another piece is to make sure there's room for growth and psychological growth, right? So prioritizing finding time to read, seeking out teachers, workshops, influences that allow you to evolve, get new ideas, become wiser, become calmer, right? Like become more centered, more knowledgeable, right? Like things that feed you, things that inspire you, right? So that could be reading something short, reading a whole book, or somehow, expose yourself to ideas and thoughts and people who can guide you and inspire you. And one important piece of self-care is giving yourself permission to have fun, right? Joy, pleasure, hobbies, creative pursuits, that's really important. Also, allow yourself to do less overall, right? So we are so busy, and just giving yourself permission to do less, at least to have some days during the week to do less and to give that value and be okay with not getting stuff done, is so important for well-being. Valuing rest, right? Like valuing parasympathetic states. So of course, all of this is hard to some degree, right? So, make small steps, small changes, one thing at a time. Like building habits takes time. Building a wellness routine takes time. It's not something to like accomplish in 1 week, right? Maybe not even 1 month, right? But like as you are working towards it, and you're getting closer, right? 10%, 20%, 50% there, it's all worth it. So hang in there, right? And believe that you can do this. Get the support you need. There's so much more to what you may need to build a healthy routine for you. Personalize it, right? And make it work for your life.